Guys, today a full Yinlin guide where I talk about her kit, best teammates, best builds, all based on my own theory crafting. Let's go. First of all, most of the things I'm going to say in this video are based on closed beta info and footage, so some things might change at release, but I'm confident most of the stuff will remain the same. So Yinlin, first thing you have to know about her is that she's kind of a hybrid character that can deal a lot of damage but also buff her teammates. I don't think I'm exaggerating if I say that in this role she's probably going to be the best in the game, easily. In fact, she can deal so much damage that she can potentially even be used as a main DPS, but let's go step by step. First, her basic attacks. They're a nice string of electric blows, but honestly they're not dealing much damage. They're not the main point of her kit. That said, while they're not great in terms of offensive power, they're applying a mark to the opponent, the Sinner's mark specifically. This mark will be very important later, so just stay with me. Her resonance skill is a much more important ability of hers, and it's pretty unique as well. It's more of a double hit, in that you have to press it twice in order to fully get its effects. The first hit deals some damage and also buffs Yinlin's crit rate through her passive. The second hit is stronger and will deal more damage to opponents that are afflicted by the Sinner's mark. Moreover, after using the skill, Yinlin will be put in a stance where every basic attacks from hers or dodge counters will trigger an extra hit to, again, all the opponents that are afflicted by the Sinner's mark. So to summarize until now, basic attacks apply the mark, the skill deals more damage if that mark is applied, and also give more value to the basic attacks themselves. The remaining cooldown of the skill only becomes visible when you use the second part of it, but don't worry, it's still being counted even if it's not visible. The significance of this is that it's pretty flexible, since you can manage it in your rotation however you want. In particular, since both versions of the skill can be swap cancelled to cut their animation short, you can do the first part, swap cancel it, then go back to Yinlin again later, do the second part, swap cancel it again, and so on. Anyway, all of her basic attacks, resonance skill hits, in their mark hits will generate Forte energy for Yinlin. When her Forte is filled, she can use a very strong AoE attack that, other than dealing damage, will also replace the Sinner's mark with the punishment mark. After this, whenever you deal damage to any opponent with the mark, with any character on your team, an extra hit will deal electro damage to all the opponents that have the punishment mark. This will happen with a cooldown of 1 second, and it's basically the entirety of Yinlin's field damage. The best part about it is definitely that every enemy receives the hit, it just makes it a great AoE tool. And the total duration is of 18 seconds, so you have a long window to take advantage of it. Lastly, a resonance liberation that is pretty simple, a very strong, very wide electro attack that will hit every opponent in range. It's the strongest single hit in Yinlin's kit in terms of damage, and will also apply the Sinner's mark to every opponent that gets hit. So compared to the basic attacks, it's a better way to apply the mark to all the opponents that surround you. On top of all I said, she also has one of the strongest auto skills in the game that provides a 20% electro damage deepen and a 25% resonance liberation damage deepen to the next character that switches in. This is perfect for somebody like Calcaro that is an electro character and also has the resonance liberation as the main source of his damage. And that's why Calcaro and Yinlin has been a very popular pairing in beta. In this regard, I see 3 ways of playing Yinlin melee. The first is a pure sub DPS that stays off field for the whole rotation after setting up her abilities. So basically you do the resonance skill, basic attacks, forte attack, resonance liberation, and then auto skill after the main DPS. This kind of sacrifices a bit of Yinlin's damage potential, but it allows the main DPS to fully take advantage of the outer effects. The reason is that, just like most outer effects, Yinlin's buffs will get removed if the other character switches out, and the alternative, so the second sub DPS playstyle, will be playing in a more quick swappy way. So instead of staying off field for the rest of the rotation with Yinlin, you take advantage of the few swap cancelling windows from your main DPS to swap back to Yinlin and do some more damage with her. This, of course, as I just mentioned, kind of sacrifices the consistency of the auto skill effects from Yinlin, but she gets to deal more attacks, like an additional resonance skill, maybe an additional forte, or intro skills, so her damage really benefits as a whole. And also, in my experience, the quick swap playstyle is just more advantageous in terms of gameplay, because you get more immunity frames, so you're more durable, and also you get to do more damage as a whole, and I think this will be felt even more with a very strong sub DPS like Yinlin. The third playstyle is her as a main DPS, and the advantage here is that you get to use more basic attacks. As a result, you deal more raw damage and also generate more forte energy, which means additional forte attacks. Honestly, this is clearly not her main role, but all things considered, as a sub DPS that can improvise as a main DPS, her total damage is not way below the pure main DPS like Xian. So she's versatile, and this is very good because it means that she can be of great value on all kinds of accounts. In terms of skill levels, she wants a bit of everything. The Forte is doing the most because it contributes to the off-field attacks, then the Resonance Liberation, the Resonance skill, the basic attacks, especially if you play her as a main DPS, all are worth increasing, yeah. Honestly, the only one you can ignore is the intro effect. Let me remind you that if you enjoy my channel but you haven't subbed yet, please consider doing so because it really makes me notice your support. In terms of echoes, as a sub DPS that can deal a lot of damage, she has access to two options mainly. The first is the Mullet Cloud set with a head-on echo, so a full send supportive set. In my opinion, this works best when you play Yinlin as a sub DPS that is off-field for most of the rotation, because that's when your damage is at their lowest and also your energy production is not that high. In fact, these echoes provides energy regeneration bonuses for Yinlin specifically, and also extra buffs for the next character you trigger an auto effect to. Alternatively, if you play Yinlin in a more offensive way, so the quick swap scenario or the main DPS scenario, then the electro damage bonus set definitely becomes stronger. The Tempest Mephis is a pretty great choice as an active echo here, since it provides electro damage bonuses and also has an animation that can easily be swap cancelled. So especially for a character like Yinlin that doesn't want to spend much time on field in most situations, it's perfect. But for pure main DPS roles, you can even use the Thundering Mephis. Technically, in terms of pure damage, the Thundering Mephis is the strongest echo this set has, but usually it comes with a big problem: it's very slow. It takes 4 seconds in total to execute its attacks, which is a loss for most main DPS, but not necessarily for Yinlin. Yinlin will have a lot of windows where she can only use her basic attacks since her main abilities are on cooldowns, so in one of those windows she can simply replace the basic attacks with the Thundering Mephis cast and nothing will be lost. Alternatively, the Lingering Tunes with the Mech Abomination echo. It's a bit of a general option since it provides attack percent, but typically works quite well. Overall though, I would say it's between the Mullet Cloud if you want to play her in a very supportive way, or the electro damage bonus set if you want to play her in a more offensive way. Stats wise, as I just implied, it kind of depends in terms of energy specifically. Honestly, it can range anywhere between 0 and 50% energy requirements depending on how much field time she has in the rotation. In particular, if she gets to use her skill twice, they will be close to 0, so the quick swap scenario or main DPS scenario. Meanwhile, for pure field roles, they can easily go up to 50%. Aside from this, for the main stats, she prefers electro damage bonus for the 3 cost echoes, although attack percent can also be a good replacement, and double crate lineups with 2 4 cost echoes is also an option, although for sure a worse one. Substats wise, energy until you need it, then crit, then attack, then skill damage bonus, and then the other types of damage bonus. The reason is that her Forte coordinated attacks are considered skill damage, so the portion of skill damage in a rotation is very high. Keep in mind that this obviously doesn't refer to the skill talent, so skill damage type, not skill talent. Weapons wise, her signature is very strong. It has a crit rate secondary stat and also gives a general damage bonus by default. Additionally, every time a skill is used, the holder gets a 12% attack bonus. So as you can imagine, it's perfect for Yinlin that gets to use her skill twice every time. It's also by far the best option for Anchor, a character I made a guide about a few days ago. The Battle Pass weapon is a great alternative, as it's basically a mini version of the signature since it gives crit rate with its secondary stat and also a lot of attack percent through the passive. Cheaper options wise, Jinsu Keeper is not bad, it's the gacha option, so it's still a bit premium. As for the free-to-play ones, the craftable is situational to say the least. The reason is that it gives a lot of energy regeneration, and there are situations where Yinlin needs it and situations where she doesn't need it at all. Still, it's pretty nice to have a freely available weapon that pretty much takes care of her energy requirements completely in any scenario. It's a nice conveniency. But yeah, her signature weapon is very good, especially since her passive is so versatile that it will be a great option on pretty much every character that can use it. Now, teammates wise, as I mentioned before, the synergy between Yinlin and Calcaro is very obvious. In terms of playstyle, these two just mold together perfectly because Calcaro has a lot of windows where you can swap cancel, and so you can go in with Yinlin and deal some damage with her. Still, compared to the second beta, so a period where this duo was called the best in the game in terms of damage, it got a bit worse. Specifically, Calcaro would not lose the auto skill buffs from Yinlin when swap cancelling out, and this was huge for his damage. Meanwhile, right now, in the full game, he loses such buffs when playing that way, and that makes the duo comparatively worse. And this just gives more merit to playing the composition without quick swapping, because Yinlin's after effects are incredibly important for Calcaro. Honestly, both are good to me, it depends on how you want to play. But anyway, Yinlin is not just a Calcaro support, she's such a strong damage dealer that she can go on any team and be used as the secondary DPS or even primary and improve the composition as a whole. For example, she can evenly compete with a sequence 3 Mortefee on GN's teams, which is huge since Mortefee is one of the strongest specific supports we have in the game. And this is all just theoretical calculated damage. The practical scenario actually favors Yinlin more, because compared to Mortefee, Yinlin's damage is much more AoE oriented with the Resonance Liberation, the Fort attacks, so in a practical scenario she will be dealing much more damage. Keep in mind that this is just a single example, but if she can beat one of the strongest supports we have in the game while being at her lowest, then she can be good everywhere. Meanwhile, as a main DPS, since her animations allow her to quick swap, I advise you to play her alongside other quick swappies of DPS. I like Anchor in this role. Anchor can be a pretty selfish DPS when you use her burst, but otherwise she can quick swap rather well. Specifically, her forte attack, heavy attacks, and resonance skills all allow for windows to quick swap, and I like how the team sounds in theory. I'm sure it will be very dynamic, and Yinlin will also deal a lot of damage as a main DPS, so it will be good. Regarding her sequences, I will just talk about the strongest sequences she has, so the best stopping points. The first two alone are not really worth expand since the damage increase from those is not substantial, but the sequence 3 is very good. It straight up increases the multipliers over of field attack, so it's clearly very strong. After that, unless you get her sequence 6, spending more money on her is not really worth it in my opinion. And I'm done for today. If you enjoyed this video, remember to subscribe and also go check all the other guides I made on my channel. Bye bye.